Gravel Bike California here, back in the Sierra. We're gonna go
to the unworldly Buck Rock Lookout.
Now, when you're riding in the Central Valley, it gets hot. So you just want to keep going up and up and up until you can find some coolness. Well, at 7,000 feet, this might be the highest ride I've ever started. We're gonna take a dip down in this clockwise loop and take a look at Kings Canyon. So, enough of this seesawing. Let's roll.
A couple of months earlier, Henry showed me around Fish Camp going into Yosemite, which is only 65 miles away from the beginning of this ride as the crow flies. But today's start was hours away driving with the windy roads. As this 32-mile loop is defined by 4 parts, starting with 8 miles of paved descending, followed by dirt with a steady 11-mile climb to begin, leading you to appendage up to Buck Rock, and ending as you mostly coast to close out this loop. We had to enter through Kings Canyon National Park, which took us through recent remnants of the 2021 KMP complex fire, meeting at Quail Flat with Gary, Neil, and William along for the ride. No early etymology lesson needed, starting off on 10 Mile Road, where we would drop 1,600 feet to our low point, which still put us a mile above sea level. And while a big descent off the bat is not normally how I like to start rides, there's plenty of climbing in the middle third to end on a high note. While views were mostly occluded with the density of this forest, there was plenty of visual candy blurring through this landscape and the rocks outcropping from the Sierra, as having tunnel vision ahead of you makes you miss out on the scale of these trees. Even though we were rolling down with speed, it was a calm descent without much traffic or sharp turns. The one interruption was at mile 5, as we passed 10 Mile Campground, initiating a half-mile climb at a sturdy 6%, but the coasting vibe soon returned, marveling on one of the most pleasant roads I've been on, as you may need to pause before the featured effort of the day.
Ready to hit the dirt now that my ears pop.
The mention of an 11-mile climb may sound daunting, especially if you know you'll be out there on your own, with Lake Hume just below as your nearest out, which is why traveling with a group is ideal. Henry has covered this route before, and he was spot on that this climb had pretty good conditions, and even when we came across some looseness, this period was short-lived, with nearby tree maintenance likely the cause. Frequent fires are an unfortunate reality in California, and this time we passed through the remnants of the 2015 Rough Fire, which was the largest of that season, spanning most of this northern ridge. And while the pine and fir trees were heavily damaged, ecologists said the fire did help sequoias release their seeds. While the break in the trees allowed to look around Kings Canyon below, the landscape surrounding gradually changed as we gained elevation, with the pockets of greenery becoming more frequent, but you need to stay aware where the road leads, or else you miss the hairpin turn to continue on, meaning if you've hit mile 15 and haven't found it, you'll be booking your ticket to Dead Endsville. This flip in the other direction meant we were well into the second half of the climb, but it was hard to get context on this 11-mile effort, as we were now mostly blocked in by the trees, and the beauty of the forest provided a worthy distraction, so that despite the length, we had fallen into a steady rhythm, and the surface conditions helped as well. The pedaling eased up as we approached mile 19, getting our first glances of surrounding meadows, and a rare experience with flatness for the day. But at this point, we were just below 8,000 feet, as the larger rocks were more exposed with a lack of sediment, But another comforting sign came, approaching other cyclists, taking away the feeling like we were completely remote. The seesawing let up after a mile, giving us our first taste of some downhill descending, with a grade not too severe and the right amount of bumpiness my 42s easily handled. But one surprise I did not see coming was the emergence of concrete, mostly hidden underneath ground cover. But our awareness returned as the slope pitched up, as we started coming across other signs and roads, even being forced into a decision approaching this T, with the group veering to the left and William heading the other direction to return back, as we headed up a 3-mile climb, which was an appendage worth going out of the way. I was no longer oriented, but we were heading south, soon making a quick right turn, which was 2 miles from the turnoff. But the lack of wind on the foliage did make me think it was quiet as much as the absence of sound, which also complemented my lack of rationalization. For example, no doubt we were climbing, but the thought that we were now over 8,000 feet never crossed my mind, stemming from these occluded views and consistent slope, finally making me consider how much switching from a fire-tarnished environment to a verdant one can affect you. The naturalness started to get interrupted, and the wayfinding was certainly welcome, as other options started to pop up. I didn't do as much homework before because I had Henry in hand, but the presence of parked cars, on top of bigger signage and a larger volume of them, suggested something was in store. And while I could read it from the geology, I had no idea the scale until it was in front of me. You're gonna want to put the bike down, as you're not gonna have a choice on the path up, as the Buck Rock Lookout Tower appears like something out of a Star Wars movie, at a height that also seems astronomical, as the route up makes you look past its engineering, as the pitch itself might be the hardest effort of the day.
Don't want to bonk going up the stairs.
No. You'll also notice a common theme on the ascent was to not even turn away the camera so I could focus on what's in front, because looking down is daunting, but so is comprehending the endless panorama of the Sierra. Everyone is welcome to explore inside the lookout free of charge, even though there's an active fire watcher on site who might not get as much privacy as they'd like, but there is a lot of useful information around, and if you look back, you might find GBC's name in the log, as we got one last look out to Kings Canyon before we left. Even with the gravity assist, coming back down moves at step-by-step speed, but we left with only our cameras appreciating this view, shortly moving past the gated area. Returning down the descent we knew would be coming, kicking up far more dust than our previous trip, and the grade was more casual than remembered, allowing us to calmly enjoy without bouncing around, but still being prepped for oncoming traffic, as it was time to grip both brakes, which also signified the end of our dirt experience, leaving us with our last regroup as the wayfinding indicated one final change of direction. It's a quick 5.5 miles to finish off, and although some maps may list this as off-roading, my non-expert opinion says otherwise. Once again, the gentle grade allows you to glide along these mellow curves, with a slight pitch to end, with less than a mile to go, prompting our exit, as Henry's batting 1,000 on fantastic rides.
You know, our last ride together, it had similar geologies, similar trees, but you know, the way it's laid out is totally different. The fact that you could start to make out the Eastern Sierra from here, all start to piece it together. Anyways, this has been a fantastic experience and I can't wait to explore deeper. If you want to help us do more though, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button, or go to our shop and support us on Patreon so we can bring you more. The City Dirt.